Hey everybody, this is Jason Creel and this is the Lawn Care Life. I'm here with my neighbor Mike, and Mike happens to be a world-class bladesmith. I don't think I'm exaggerating that. I mean, he's the best bladesmith on our street, I know that.
That's for sure.
So anyway, he's going to help me today. We're going to sharpen some lawnmower blades, and I don't know anybody that knows better about sharpening metal than Mike. So I brought some, and he's got lots of cool equipment. So I mean, we're going to give you a shop tour later, but I want to show you first. We're going to talk to you, Mike, about sharpening a lawnmower blade, and he's going to demonstrate, and then we'll show you some of the really cool stuff he sharpens that is a lot cooler than lawnmower blades. Hi Mike, thanks for helping me out. So we got, this is the blades that come off my 60-inch zero turn, and listen, Mike's got awesome shop here. He's got more equipment, and most of it I don't know even how to turn it on, or much less what to do with it. But Mike, maybe you could talk to us for a second. I mean, you make knives and swords and whatever else that and so talk to us about what we're trying to accomplish here, because there's a difference in sharpening a lawnmower blade versus a knife, but I mean same time you're working with metal like you're used to working with.
Yeah, so I'm glad Jason came out today. This is kind of a cool little project. I do like to make knives, and typically knives are something that you want to have as thin as completely possible for for cutting objects, and edge geometry is real important in knives. Same thing here with these lawnmower blades, but thinness isn't a thing. So with these lawnmower blades, we're going to try to put kind of a new edge on here. You can already see the factory edge that was put on here, and I imagine these people know what they're doing. So this is probably the best edge geometry that you can possibly use. So we're going to just try to replicate that today. We're trying not to go too thin. Obviously with lawnmowers you have this potential of hitting rocks and dirt and all kinds of debris, and so we want something that's going to be stout. We want to have a lot of mass left in it, like the overall thickness of this blade. You want to maintain that. You don't want it too thin. Too thin is just going to crumble under any kind of debris.
When you said edge geometry, we don't talk a lot that kind of terminology with lawnmowers. So what do you mean by, I picked up on it a little bit, but what's edge geometry in layman's terms?
So in layman's terms, edge geometry is, if you cut this blade, if you took a big saw and cut this blade in half, what you would see is two angles. You would see the thickness of the blade, which is kind of a rectangular in dissection. If you dissected this, then you would see one angle going like this. That's the edge geometry of this particular blade.
Okay.
Now a knife is going to be a lot more. You're going to have a lot of, instead of this kind of edge geometry like this on a lawnmower blade, a knife is going to come real up into a point. It's going to be very thin. Okay, so we want to keep some thickness, but we also want to have a sharp edge. So
how do you figure out the balance between even like making a knife or a lawnmower blade, like where it's thicker? Obviously thinner can be sharper, but how do you balance thickness versus sharpness? Because like I said, on this, I mean, obviously it's spinning very fast. It doesn't have to be super sharp, but sharp blade, if you have dull blades, the problem is it tears the grass versus cutting, so it doesn't give you a good clean finish.
Sure. So if you look here, you can see this edge isn't terrible. The edge isn't knocked away, but this is kind of rounded. So if we just get this a little bit sharp here, it's going to cut grass pretty good because of the speed of the blade. But on a knife, when you're cutting, you're cutting slow, right? You're not taking a knife and cutting real fast. So you're cutting kind of slow. So you have to have less resistance in your blade versus the object that you're trying to cut.
Okay.
So in this case here, you have speed and mass that are actually doing a lot of your cutting. So we're just going to try to come through and refine this edge a little bit.
All right. So thinking about equipment, you got all kind of equipment, but like a normal guy in his garage may have some sort of vise to hold the blade with, and we're going to demonstrate first with like a handheld angle grinder. So that's what we're going to, we're going to try some cooler equipment later on.
And actually, Jason, before we start this angle grinder, I want to show you something that's even simpler yet. Let's try this. Now, I think I have something over here. Now, it doesn't get much simpler than this, okay? This is an old, actually not old, it's new, but one of the oldest metal removing tools is a file. And let's try this real quick.
Okay.
We're gonna come in here. You know, some guys might not even have an angle grinder. You might be stuck out in the field somewhere and you don't have any electricity, you don't have much. You can actually use a file like this. Now this steel that they use for these, I can't guarantee that I know what this is. I assume it's some kind of spring steel, something that's hardenable, that can hold an edge for a while. So let's just say it's 5160 spring steel. Well, if this were completely hardened and you hit a rock with it, the thing would break, okay? If this were completely annealed or in its softest state possible and you hit something with it, it would bend, the whole thing would bend. So there's probably a hardness here that allows this to be sharpened, but yet not break when you hit debris with it, okay? So let's try it. Let's try this file here. Now normally if I'm using a grinder and stuff, I'd probably use some safety glasses. With a file here, you'll see there's really not much going on here, okay? So what I'm gonna do is put this file on here. By the way, this is a double cut file. What that means is it has cuts going in this direction,
Okay.
and cuts going in this direction. So from here on down, these will actually make little diamond teeth in their shape.
Do you hand sharpen stuff like your knives? What is that? Do you use a file often?
So when I first started making knives, I started making knives about 20 years ago, and I was in a situation where for years I didn't have electricity, didn't have anything to, I didn't have a grinder, didn't have any electricity, didn't have anything but files. And so I made completely usable knives with files for years. And I can actually show you some of those knives in a minute. But right now, let's try this. Let's put this, if you'll notice what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to match this factory edge with my file here. Like I don't want to go too much like this. If I were filing like this, I would be making a flat edge, right?
Yeah.
So let's try to mimic the factory edge. And I'm gonna try to push this file. All right, well, it's not gonna work if I don't get her tightened up in the vise here. Now, these files only cut by pushing. So, one thing you see a lot of people do is they do this kind of motion. You really want to just cut with pushing, okay? When you come back, you just relieve the pressure and only put pressure down when you go forward. Now you can kind of see I'm actually cutting more up here towards the edge.
Yeah.
So I can actually change my angle a little bit of my file until I get it. Now you can see I'm kind of getting the whole face of this angle here, okay? And this is actually not doing too bad. Now, I lived for years in Central America, and guys spend their whole lives mowing lawns with machetes. And people can do some pretty incredible things with machetes. If you look at this, Jason, check this out. See how we're getting a good flatness right here?
Yeah.
Now this is actually removing quite a bit of material. See, I'm not even pressing that hard. I've only been working on this, what, 15 or 20 strokes, and it's starting to remove some material, make it nice and flat. And so the guys that use machetes to mow yards would keep a file in their pocket, and they mow with their machetes, get down, and then lunchtime they get out their files and they file their machetes and sharpen them.
I would think they would just maybe get some goats or something. I'm serious in those places where they don't have long electric power equipment. Or,
well, they'll actually mow home lawns. People who don't want goats in their homes.
Oh, I got you.
Jason, people aren't like us. We don't. People don't want goats in our yard like we do. Like we want goats in our yard. Some people don't like that, Jason. So I'm gonna get back on here. Now I got that edge kind of matched. You'll see that I'm not coming down into here too much. I'm trying to keep all.
I think what I like about this, you are taking off the metal, but it's minimal. I mean, you're not, you know what I'm saying? Because you want to ideally be able to get quite a few sharpenings out of one set of blades. It's not like you want to like use them, sharpen them, and then throw them away. So the more metal you can leave, the more usage you'll be able to get out of the blade.
Exactly, and I think if you were a person who could plan this kind of stuff, where you would, I know a lot of people don't like downtime. They don't like to take their equipment apart. But if all you had were a file, you could probably do this, 2 or 3 times a season, and you would have less work to do by doing it more often, right?
Yeah.
Where a lot of times we want to maximize our time and do it once a year. Well, as you can see, this is actually putting a pretty good edge on it. Jason, come over. Let's look at this side over here. See, it's still a little bit round over here, a little bit, but
Yeah.
that's done quite a bit.
Yeah, that's
Do you like that, Jason?
as far as feeling that, that's probably better than what I normally do with the angle grinder. So
Okay.
I think that's good, because I don't think that's very far off from factory right there as far as the feel of it.
And you see, it's not cutting my finger or anything, but
Yeah.
for grass,
Yeah.
and with the speed and mass of this mower,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's gonna be fine, right?
I mean, I'll admit this one time on YouTube, but I'm pretty sure one time I put the blades on backwards and they still cut scratch. You know, it shows how fast they're spinning. You can turn the blades backwards and they'll cut. So I mean, you don't have to be crazy sharp, but then you're basically tearing the grass versus a nice clean cut, and it kind of gives you a brown look at the end of a blade of grass.
So you can see, I haven't really put a lot of pressure on this, and we got quite a bit of.
Yeah.
All right.
There's going to be some people that's going to think that's cool, and then there's others that don't like the amount of labor involved, and so they're going to want something that you can plug into the wall.
I totally get it.
So
Totally get it.
maybe you can show something
Okay.
something that
Yeah, let's do this.
makes louder noises.
And yeah, let's check this out. So here's your
All right.
4.5 inch angle grinder.
Yeah.
Okay, so I use these a lot in my metalworking. The cool thing about this, you can get these battery operated.
Yeah.
Throw one of these babies in your truck.
Oh yeah.
Keep it charged up, and if you're stuck out somewhere and the blades aren't doing what you want them to do, you can result to one of these. Of course, when you do something like this, things are moving fast, powerful. You want to wear some good safety protection. I know not many people have a vise, but you could use a C-clamp. Actually, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's just chunk this baby up. Let's pretend you don't have a vise out in the field somewhere, and but you got a tailgate to your truck possibly, right? And so we can put this on here, and then you can. Perhaps if you kept a C-clamp in your vehicle, this is always a very handy tool. Chunk this up to your tailgate of your truck, or some kind of, maybe even like the hauler for your mower. Make sure it's nice and tight. Won't move around on you. Here you can see our edge. This is the edge we're trying to replicate. Okay, so I'm gonna just throw my glasses on here. And before I even start, what's a good idea is to take this, don't run it, and just take it, and if you do this, you can kind of see what kind of angle you are. Where if I did this and I was only scraping this very edge, I would know to come back in here and put this angle on here, right? And so that's the kind of angle I'm looking for right there, okay? Let me throw my glasses on here. This gets loud and annoying, but it's gonna work fast. So one thing I want people to see, you saw me moving this like this. You want to try to avoid too much movement this way and going back and forth too much. You can kind of see right here where I've kind of ground maybe a little bit farther away from this cutting edge. So I would need to put a little more pressure this way. So what I'm going to try and do is start here where the factory edge is, and slowly pull on the same angle all the way down this blade. Let's try that once. Okay. That was a little bit better. Now, one thing to consider is if you're grinding it a lot, you could actually take the temper out of this blade, potentially. Although I wouldn't worry about too much on a big piece of steel like this.
What's temper? Sorry to ask basic questions here.
So yeah, so these blades, if they were hardened, which they probably were, the tempering process is what, if you can imagine this blade being hardened, it's going to it reacts essentially like ice. Ice is very solid, but if you drop it, it would break. Kind of the same idea. Once these are very hard, their potential to break is real easy. So the tempering process brings that brittleness back to a little more on the softer side, so where the steel becomes tough rather than brittle. Brittle is, you can think of it as good. It might hold an edge, it might be hard, but when you're running a mower at how many thousands of RPMs and that thing is spinning, if you hit a rock and these blades were very hard, it would just shatter the blade. And you don't want that. That's why these blades, you can see them, the edges get kind of crumpled because they've been tempered a lot. All right, so if we look at our edge here, you can see these divots in here where debris, the blades have hit debris. Now, you can take that out with a little bit of time. I don't think it's completely necessary on a mower.
I don't think it is. I usually don't worry about it.
And so in these situations, you want these blades to last as long as you possibly can. So, yeah, I would just take them down to this is nice and flat, and it has some relative sharpness to it. You're not trying to make it cut, slice paper. You're just trying to get it to cut through grass without ripping too much.
Mike's doing a great job. He's going to put me to work in a minute. I'm going to have to actually sharpen some of these blades. But Mike, if you maybe you recognize, not sure, but Mike was a Forged in Fire champion. So if you've seen that show on the History Channel, or you can catch it on Netflix and Hulu and streaming services like that. Forged in Fire was on the History Channel, and it was a bladesmithing competition. And Mike, what episode? If they want to go back and watch you put a whooping on those boys, what? Those were some nice guys, but you won. So what episode? If they want to go find you?
All right. Well, Forged in Fire, season 5, episode 27. It's called the Hollywood edition. And so, yeah, those forging skills come in handy, and especially with things like with mowing and things like that, having that kind of knowledge is real important.
All right, Mike, tell them the story real quick. Mike is our neighbor, and his kids are about the same age as my kids, and so our family spent time together sometimes. He kind of disappeared on me for a few weeks there, and it was looking at is like top secret. He couldn't know he was filming, and so one day I called him and I wanted to know if they wanted to come over to eat some watermelon. Mike's from Ohio and I'm from Alabama, and he's got the guys that are filming. It's like a New York film crew. But can you walk us through what happened?
Okay, well, I'm from Ohio. I live in Alabama, so everyone says I have an accent, right? Well, the film crew, this is a few years ago. The film crew's from New York, and I'm working on a knife. I'm working on this knife for the show. I can't tell anybody about it, so I'm working on it. And Jason calls me, and in his beautiful accent says, I don't normally do this, but I just hit speakerphone, right, while I'm working, and the film crew's filming me. And Jason says, "Hey Mike, this is Jason. Just want to see if y'all want to come over and eat some watermelon." And the guy filming me pokes his head up from the camera and says, "Is that real?" Like he thought we set it up.
Oh man, come on.
Let's do it.
All right, so Mike's going to show us around. We're going to show you some of his knives. He's got a blade show coming up soon, and he's making some really cool stuff. Going to show you some of his work, and then we'll get back to sharpening lawnmower blades. His company is called Deibert Knives. That's D-E-I-B-E-R-T. Okay, on the back of his shirt there. So you go to DeibertKnives.com, or also follow him on Facebook or Instagram. He's posting really cool stuff. I brought my dad, my father-in-law over here one time. They made their own sheaths. Is it sheath? How did I say
sheath?
That? Sheaths?
Yeah, sheaths.
What is
sheaths?
All right, whatever. The little leather thing that the knife goes in. Made some of those, but show them some of your things you've been working on.
Yeah. So for the blade show, I'm getting ready to go here. This is kind of like my machete, my lawnmower here. I use this for cutting down bamboo and wood. See, it's well used, but this is a forged finished blade. That means I've really not much done. I haven't done much grinding on this.
Mike makes the handles and everything, and so when you make the blade, you're not just explain to him real quick. You're not buying a blade and just sharpen it. You take the raw steel.
I'll
and
show you right there, Jason. Stay right there, Jason. I'll show you. This is
yeah, he takes like a block of that, and
so here's a bar of steel. I buy it like this, and then I'll forge it into a blade like this. Now this is probably for smaller blades. I'll start with a bigger piece of steel for something like this, but this is a big chopper I just finished up, and I'll have this at the blade show as well, something like this. I really love making Damascus steel, so Jason can maybe show you this. I don't know if you can see this.
The pattern in the metal, the way he does, and so you're taking metal and folding it over and over and getting it hot and folding it, and beating it, and all that. So
yeah,
I can't, I know I'm not explaining it good, but
so this is a German hunting saber. I just made this. This is for getting ready for the blade show. Kind of a machete-like thing, but older style blade made out of Damascus steels that I make here in the shop.
Here's a picture of Mike on the. There's Mike when he was on TV, and there he is being filmed by them crazy New Yorkers.
All right. Well, these are some knives we got going here. But listen, we need to get Jason back to work here. He's got some blades to make. So we're gonna go out. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna use some equipment that I use in forging knives. Stuff that makes knife making real simple. It's gonna make lawnmower sharpening real simple as well. But we're gonna get Jason working because he hadn't done much today.
Yeah, Mike's sweating and I'm feeling pretty good.
All right, guys, let's go do it.
I don't think most of you are gonna have a grinder like this. I looked at it and wouldn't know how to turn it on, much less use it. But Mike's gonna show me this fancy grinder he has and show us how to work it.
All right. So in knife making, I do a lot of grinding, and so I like to have some really good equipment. And this is a Wilmot grinder. These are 2x72 grinders. Now it's not the typical wheel grinder like Jason. You see this right here? Like a lot of people have this kind of grinder in their shop, and this is set up for sharpening and for wire wheeling. And you can put a stone on those and you can grind, and that's great. And that's probably next step above having a 4.5-inch grinder. But I like to use these. It's got a 2-inch wide belt, 36 grit, really aggressive. And this machine is incredible. If I had a business where I was sharpening blades, I would definitely have something like this. Speed control. Got a motor brake on it. A lot of bladesmiths use these kind of grinders, but these are really good for removing any kind of metal. They're really incredible. And so I'm going to get my safety glasses on here a second. But before I begin, I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to try to match, just like I showed you with the other one. You're going to try to match your angle. And I'm going to bring this across once I get this angle matched like this. And it's going to remove material really quickly. I'll let you see that right now. So I ground the top here. Sometimes on the bottom, you might get some burrs. I'm gonna go ahead and just do a little flat grind right here. Now this is totally up to the lawn care professional how you want to do this. And you see this is a little bit rounded here. You can go as sharp as you want, but I will tell you this, you can make it really sharp, but probably after you've hit quite a bit of debris, it's going to take a lot of that away pretty quickly. So
yeah.
I imagine the objective for the lawn care professional is going to be to save as much meat here as possible.
Yeah,
so
that's what I think.
What do you think, Jason? You want to give it a shot?
Yeah, I probably should.
Okay.
I think I'm qualified.
You're doing a pretty good job.
Alright, hope you guys learned some different ways to sharpen the blades, whether you got basic equipment or more advanced equipment. Thanks to Mike. Again, you can follow his work at Dybert Knives. You can look him up Instagram, Facebook, or dybertknives.com. Or check him out on the Forest and Fire episode that he was on. Thanks a lot for watching. If you have done so, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'm almost got 100,000 subscribers at the time of this video, so help me get there by clicking the subscribe button. Or you may just want to check out some of the suggested videos popping up for you now. We'll see you guys in the next video.